And tonight on The Wrap, one of the most revered investigative journalists of all time, now defending claims he made that the official story on the death of Osama bin Laden was inaccurate. But the White House is pushing back twice as hard. Gulf leaders, including the King of Saudi Arabia, are snubbing the Camp David summit this week. What will this mean for our pending nuclear deal with Iran? And former HP CEO Carly Fiorina, teaching the Hillary Clinton camp a few lessons in meeting the press. We've got all that, plus potluck and yay and nay. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show. I'm Joe Concha, joined by Sirius XM radio host, columnist for Forbes.com, and a man once suspended for deflating footballs in his co-ed flag football league. It's true. My revived co-host, Rick Unger. Welcome back, buddy.
Back in action.
Back and feeling better.
Flu bug decided to pay a little visit to the Unger household.
I guess so. We were worried sick.
We're ready to go.
Hopefully we did that well, and
we're
my
ready
name
to
is
go.
in it. To his right, Philly's top lawyer and America's pundit. She is Heather Hansen. And to her right, the host of Close Encounter, Lisa Janovitz, is back once again, sans glasses. Okay, lots happening tonight. Let's get right to the Daily Download. And we begin with the bombshell allegations about the Obama administration's raid to get Osama bin Laden. Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Seymour Hersh says the White House lied about the events leading up to the al-Qaeda leader's death in 2011.
Think about this. A team of SEALs, and our SEALs are the best there is, there's no question. 24, 25 guys go in to the middle of Pakistan, take out a guy with no air cover, no protection, no security, no trouble. Are you kidding me?
Hersh defending his reporting on CNN, saying he was able to extensively vet his sources. He says the Pakistani government knew where bin Laden was hiding and knew about the U.S. raid.
The deal was we weren't going to announce it. They were going to take him out. They had to kill him. That was the agreement. There's no question this was an assassination from the get-go, despite what the White House says. They had to kill him, and they had to bring him out, the body out, and then we were going to announce it. The initial plan was, the plan that everybody agreed to, it would be announced 7 to 10 days later. As the result, we did a drone hit in the Hindu Kush mountains that separate Pakistan and Afghanistan, and my God, we took a look. There was a tall guy, and it turned out to be bin Laden. We did a DNA test, and the president was going to announce it a week later.
But Hersh says President Obama decided to go public that night and reveal what happened.
The alternative is you want to believe what I call a Lewis Carroll fairy tale, that bin Laden, who the most hunted man since 2002 in the world, decided he's going to, the one safe place to live is in a compound 40 miles from the main capital of Pakistan.
Hersh claims an informant who collected most of the $25 million reward, you remember that, turned the al-Qaeda leader over to the CIA, the intelligence community, as well as the White House today, now pushing back very hard on the claims made by Mr. Hersh.
The Obama White House is not the only one to observe that the story is riddled with inaccuracies and outright falsehoods. The former deputy director of the CIA, Mike Morrell, has said that every sentence was wrong.
How that former deputy CIA director, Michael Morrell, insists the Pakistani government did not know about the operation and was furious with the U.S. for not letting them know. What do you make of all this, Rick Unger?
Fascinating story. You know, you start from the point of view that Seymour Hersh is not somebody you simply dismiss. He's a very credible journalist.
Let's list the
oh gosh, I mean,
his
work on Vietnam, nobody came close. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
U.S. war crimes.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean,
Abu Ghraib in Iraq.
He's been, just for the New Yorker magazine, about as good as it gets. By the way, one of the curious things that somebody brought up to me was, why wasn't this piece in the New Yorker magazine? Right. But it also, I got to tell you, filled in some potential gaps for me. I always had trouble with the idea that after all these years of trying to track bin Laden, suddenly we were able to follow these couriers. That was always a little tough for me to buy. All of that said, you know, if you're going to look at the other side of it, usually if something is spun out very complicated, very conspiratorial, it's often not true. So we don't know. I will tell you this, when I hear Mike Morrell, who was running the CIA, say that not one sentence is true, That makes me suspicious of him. When you dig into this whole thing, we would have every obligation under the way that Hersh wrote it to protect the Pakistanis. And it wasn't simply a matter of paying this $25 million finder's fee to the guy who apparently came in off the street. There was a lot more in this for Pakistan, and it happened at a time when we were badly cutting off our aid to them, which we suddenly restored. This story, I can promise you, will keep going. There's a lot more to this.
I like to look at the messenger in these situations and say, okay, what is the motive? Okay, so is Seymour Hersh some sort of partisan, somebody who could benefit from this, somebody who's trying to make a name for himself? And I can't get there because he's 78 years old.
Right.
He's won Pulitzers. Yeah. He has broken news. Like, as I said, he's one of the most revered investigative journalists of all time. So he isn't lying. That I'm sure of. Is he now, granted, the source is one source,
right,
and it is anonymous.
Right.
So he is trusting that source with his reputation. If this is proven wrong, everything he's done before, I'm not saying it goes away,
right,
but it gets tainted. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on
I
this.
think he believes the story, for sure. I mean, when you saw him interviewed, you can tell he believes the story. And sometimes you believe a story because you investigate it yourself and you go that far. I have a hard time. I think the truth falls somewhere in between.
Usually
As you
does,
said,
doesn't
Rick,
it?
yeah, I think, but when you think about the Navy SEALs who were involved, Rob O'Neill, who's now a Fox contributor, and Matt Bissonnette, who wrote a book as well. I mean, they would have to be in on this thing and somehow lying. Right. So there's got to be a happy medium there, where it's just like the Brian Williams stuff. You know, people start to take advantage of a story, the story gets bigger, they get caught up in the story, they become the hero of the story. So I think that there's probably little pieces of both stories that are true.
It's interesting that this comes out 4 years later.
Why is this coming out now? If it is somehow the people who felt that they were betrayed in some way, they could have come out with this better for their purposes in 2012.
Well, but they weren't the ones who did it. You have to. I mean, there are.
But if they were
answers
giving
to
any
that.
information to him,
it may have taken that long for him to pull the story together.
Well, get the story together.
Again, I can't tell you that that's
right.
what happened, but there are very reasonable explanations to why it would take this long. We don't know when he first got onto the story and all of that. If I'm betting money, I'm kind of with Heather on this. Usually the truth falls somewhere in there. It is a little weird about the part on the raid itself. The SEALs would have no way of knowing everything that preceded the actual raid.
Right.
And the actual raid could have happened exactly as we were told it did.
Right.
But there is disagreement there. Hersh says that there was no firefight, that there was nobody encountered them, and the SEALs do disagree with that.
I've always wondered, and people have always asked, why have we seen photographs of the body?
Right.
And that's a part of this story as
And
well.
he explains that.
Yeah, he certainly does.
Go into that a little bit more.
Well, I mean, basically, we don't know who was thrown off of the ship where bin Laden was supposedly dropped to the bottom of the sea. Also, if we were being so careful to follow Islamic law would have required that an imam be present.
Right.
And there was no imam on that ship. So, this can just be, look, in real life, inconsistencies happen.
Right.
So it could be as simple as that, or it could be something a lot more. It's a remarkably fascinating story. I will tell you that for me, parts of it just kind of rang bells and said, I always wondered about that. But that doesn't mean it's true.
The lead in this, obviously, is that Osama bin Laden was killed,
Right.
and our
Yeah.
Navy SEAls did it.
Right.
So why would you even have to put sprinkles on that sundae? I mean, it's
Oh, no, it
already
matters.
perfect, right?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it is less perfect when it's just the Navy SEAls go in and do it. I think that this, though, is going to be our generation's Who Shot JFK. There's always going to be that conspiracy. People are going to do, oh, yeah. I think it already was. Even before this, I knew a lot of people who questioned, why don't we have photographs? Why didn't we see the body? Why
that's
isn't
true.
And also, too, I mean, and I'm usually not the one to be the one to say this, but the whole thing does paint President Obama
Very well.
in a heroic
Exactly,
light.
exactly.
And in Hersh's
It's all America.
point of view,
you know.
it's not quite such a beautiful thing.
For
you
sure.
know?
He
So,
definitely
You
does.
go bowling with Oliver Stone. Will this be the next movie? Because Zero Dark 30 basically retold the
actually,
non-Hersh version.
That's an interesting question. In real life, that could happen.
It
Yeah,
could, right?
yeah.
Why not? Last word, Lisa.
But yes, it does paint President Obama. This is largely how when he was running for re-election, he was the one that got bin Laden. So it was a huge story for him, for his legacy. And if it's all America, it makes it all the more
GM is
better.
alive and Osama bin Laden is dead,
Yeah.
and Seymour Hersh has a different version than we do. Okay, coming up next, Gulf leaders are deciding to skip the Camp David summit later this week. Why? We'll tell you why. That's next on the Daily Wrap. And welcome back to the show. The White House now downplaying what many analysts are calling a snub by the King of Saudi Arabia. Only 2 days after the White House said King Salman would be attending the Gulf Cooperation Council Summit at Camp David, the Saudis announced he was sending the Crown Prince instead.
Given what's going on in Yemen, the imminent start of a ceasefire, hopefully, if the Houthis agree to it there, the king made this decision, as the Saudis have spoken to. And again, they're sending their crown prince, their deputy crown prince. They're in charge of intelligence, defense. Mohammed bin Nayef has had Oval Office meetings, certainly with the president.
I know that there have been some speculation that this change in travel plans was an attempt to send a message to the United States. If so, that message was not received. Because all the feedback that we've received from the Saudis has been positive.
Now, no word that Marie Harf and Mr. Ernest were actually king and queen of the Sigma Chi Delta Delta Delta. Can I help you, help you, help you?
Let's get Seymour Hirsch on that.
Yes, we should, absolutely. I want to know. Anyway, Saudi Arabia has complained for years that Washington does not take its concerns seriously. It thinks a focus on settling the dispute over Tehran's nuclear program has distracted the United States from more urgent problems. The Saudis believe Iranian support for proxy militias, in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen is the biggest cause of regional instability. They contend that inflames sectarian tensions and boosts Sunni Muslim jihadists. But it's not just the leader of Saudi Arabia who's skipping out on the Camp David summit. The heads of Bahrain and Oman and actually 4 of 6 countries will not be attending with their highest level leaders, instead sending lower level officials instead. So what does all this mean for our nuclear talks with Iran and relations with the Gulf countries? Snubbing the summit, I go to you first, Ms. Hansen.
Listen, I think it looks awfully, awfully bad. I think that the relationship has not been the greatest. I think that the Saudi Arabians especially have felt as though President Obama is judgmental about the way that they, handle human rights issues, and he may have a right to be. But I think that it certainly shows a lack of respect for him. It shows a lack of feeling, the Wall Street Journal reported today that they feel as though the issues just aren't narrowed enough to make it worth their while to come. And I think that that really shows a problem for this deal with Iran.
You think, is it a lack of respect for President Obama, or is it more a lack of respect for the deal? They just don't like it.
I think it's both, but I think one stems from the other. I think that the deal has just been the straw that broke the camel's back as far as the lack of respect that goes both ways.
And yet we still don't have a deal, but apparently...
This is so one of those things where, depending on what side you tend to lean, you come down there. I mean, you may be right. You really may. I mean, we have absolutely no way of knowing at this point. You could certainly make the argument, everything Heather just said is correct. You could just as easily make the argument that the guy is old. He met last week with Kerry, so it wasn't like he was blowing off the Secretary of State.
But he said he was coming originally.
He did. He's like an old guy. I don't know. It may be
you're
a
saying
snub.
that the brain is gone, and he's, I think I'm coming. Wait, did I say 7-Eleven or USA?
He may have the flu. I mean, you just don't know what he decided to do. I think it's a leap based on absolutely nothing to say that it was a snub. We've yet to get anything. We may get something where he says something. I think another issue may be if you look at who agreed to attend it, aside from him, he may have very well decided there's not enough of my fellow leaders from the area to justify me going. And that actually would, to me, be a more rational reason to do it. Saudi Arabia can never afford. I mean, if you want to set aside the politics, Saudi Arabia can never afford, and this is completely inarguable, to snub the United States. So I think the snub thing's pushing it. I do.
But if they're not happy with the
I don't
Iran
care
deal,
if
and
they
they
hate
are
our
forming
guts.
a closer alliance with,
Yeah.
with Israel and with Egypt, right? Which is, good thing for the Middle East. But isn't that a result of them not
Who
being
gives
happy?
them all the money?
of the
Israel or us?
But isn't that a result of them not being happy with the direction of the Iran deal?
They
And-
could hate it, and I think they do hate it. They're not going to snub us, believe
So
me.
you don't think this was a snub at all?
No, I
Or you're
think
not-
my personal opinion, forgetting everything that there is to see, which isn't much, I really think he looked at who was attending and said, wait a minute, the other guys are sending their top dignitaries, they're not coming, so why am I going?
Well, Bahrain, is that how you say that?
Yeah.
They backed out after he
Bahrain.
did.
Yeah, but who cares? I mean, I don't mean to
And
be
wasn't he
disrespectful
supposed to
about
meet
Bahrain.
with King Salman, he was supposed to meet a one-on-one with President
Yes, the
Obama
day
the day before,
Yeah.
which that is kind of a pretty big deal to
I don't know,
back
Rick.
out of that.
Yeah.
And I also
it's
think in
not
that
really.
culture, there's a
Not
lot
really.
to be said for the courtesies like this and what things look like.
You
And
mean
I
they're not
think
going to be
that-
able to hold hands in Washington?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think ultimately they need us too much to do
Yeah.
anything major. But I also do think that appearances are very important. That the routine, these types
But
of
wouldn't, if you wanted to send a message, wouldn't he have blown off? I mean, you don't meet with the Secretary of State and not meet with his boss if you're trying to send a message.
right,
of
but you met
we're
with the
ticked
Secretary
off
of
at
State,
you.
someone that's local for you, as opposed to
Maybe
coming
local,
here.
but you don't have to meet with him.
I think that there's a very strong argument that it's due to. I mean, it's
Probably strong arguments going
But
both
either way,
ways,
yeah.
and none of us really know.
There are certain friends that when they come to me, I'll see them, but I won't travel more
Right.
than 15 minutes to go out of my way to see them.
true. Wanna come to my house?
Yes, I do have a theory around this, though. All right, oil prices are way down.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? The money isn't coming into countries like Saudi Arabia like it used to.
He can't afford it,
He
man.
can't afford it. He has to fly coach. And if you get the middle seat at his age with that bladder,
You know what he said? He said, "Oi, it's like it's not worth it."
where did it get all? I mean, have you ever flown there before? That area with 10-hour
let alone coach.
Yeah.
God
Yeah,
forbid.
forget it.
I'd
But
be
isn't
with
he
him.
sending two
So-
instead? So those two
I
poor
would,
guys.
I would just point out that he is a big part of the reason that oil prices are so low.
You think so?
I know so. He's allowing it to happen.
Right.
How does that benefit?
Because he's trying to. This is a whole other
Choke
conversation.
Iran type of thing?
But quickly, no, he's trying to choke us. He's trying to make the prices of oil so low that our oil producers, who are about to put him in a bad position, won't be able to afford to drill
Oh
oil.
wow!
That's really what.
Well,
that's
either
all
way,
about.
I like it right now because I
Right.
can actually
Yeah,
fill my
right,
tank for
right.
less than $60. So anyway, coming up next, did Dr. Ben Carson compare the U.S. to Nazi Germany? Of course he did. And who does former Governor Jeb Bush turn to for advice? Rick, we'll be right out after the break. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to The Wrap. We now turn to the road to 2016. Dr. Ben Carson and likely candidate Jeb Bush are making headlines. The former Florida governor telling Fox News he would have done the same things as his brother when it comes to the war in Iraq.
I would have, and so would have Hillary Clinton, just to remind everybody, and so would have almost everybody that was confronted with the intelligence they got.
You don't think it was a mistake?
In retrospect, the intelligence that everybody saw, that the world saw, not just the United States, was faulty.
And when it comes to his stance on immigration reform, which includes legal status for some, Mr. Bush says he thinks he can convince the more conservative Republicans to see it his way.
There's got to be a point where we fix this system so that legal immigration is easier than illegal immigration, and show some respect for people, a kid that might have been here 10 years, that may be a valedictorian of their high school, to say, no, you're not allowed to go to college. I just think there's a point past which we're over the line.
And meanwhile, Dr. Ben Carson, who announced his 2016 bid last month, is defending some of his more controversial statements, including one when he compared the U.S. government to Nazi Germany.
Well, a lot of people like to say that, but what I said is that in Nazi Germany, most of those people didn't believe in what Hitler was doing. But did they say anything? They did not. And that's what allowed things to progress to that point. We need to be willing to stand up and speak up for what we.
And as the Supreme Court decides whether to make same-sex marriage the law of the land, Dr. Carson tells Fox News Sunday that it's time to re-examine the idea that presidents have to abide by laws the High Court says are constitutional.
Laws of the land are not provided by the judiciary branch.
But, sir,
So-
since Marbury v. Madison in 1803, we have lived under the principle of judicial review, which says if the Supreme Court says this is the law, this is constitutional, that
Right.
the rest, the executive has to observe that.
And I have said this is an area that we need to discuss. We need to get into a discussion of this because it has changed from the original intent.
Now, Carson is not the only GOP hopeful who thinks this way. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee has been very open with his views on the Supreme Court on this issue. But let's start with Governor Bush standing by his brother's choices regarding the war in Iraq. Mr. Unger, is that the way you would have gone?
Really, really not very smart. You know, the thing that really caught my eye is first that he was saying he would have been for it. I kind of get that. You know, what he's saying is if I had had the same information. And then he quickly reminded reminds us that Hillary was too. What he doesn't bother pointing out is that Hillary has since apologized for it and said she made a mistake, and here Jeb is doubling down. Not a smart idea, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know that he was doubling down. I think he's simply stating that with the information that they had then, I mean, the UN Security Council voted 9-0.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, everyone, for the most part.
Russia,
It
China.
might not have been a terrible idea then to say, if I knew now what I knew then maybe it'd be different. He also then went on to blame all the mistakes that were made for why it went so badly, which he was right.
Right.
But he does admit
should have
also
said.
that his brother acknowledges that mistakes
Yes,
were
he
made
does.
in terms.
Right.
So
Yes,
he does say that. He doesn't shy away from that.
But saying that I would have done it again, bad political
based
move.
on the information that he knew, that was known at
But
the
then
time.
point out that from now what we know, I wouldn't have done it.
At least I think
Like
the problem
Hillary did.
is that the brand he has to overcome is
Right.
the Bush brand, which isn't the most favorable of brands. So we always hear that Jeb is the smarter of the two, that he is the more pragmatic of the two, and that you're not going to get another Bush, which was a one-termer, and then a two-termer went out with approval ratings in the mid to low 30s. And what he just did there was like, yep, you could be getting another version of George W. Bush. I can guarantee you in political ads, you're going to hear that sound over and over again.
Yeah.
So what would you have said, Rick, instead of?
Well, we were
I talked
kind
my
of came
brother.
to this together. I don't want to steal all the credit on this one, but we were talking during the break, and we all agreed if we had been his campaign advisor, we would have said, I don't listen. I don't. You know, well, the question was, what is who does he go to for Middle East advice? And he said George W. Bush.
Right.
Might have been smarter. We all agreed to say Dad Bush.
Right.
George
Yes,
H.W. Bush.
Or
And I think
both
we
of
all
them.
would have sat here going,
Right,
yeah,
yes,
okay.
that would have made sense.
Or both of them, because you go to past
both of them.
presidents who have the experience, all of the past presidents. I mean, that's one of the problems I have with President Obama, is that he's not known to do that. If you have people that have experience in this
Right.
realm, you use them for their experience. So I
Especially
would-
when they're in your family.
Yeah,
I
your
don't blame
dad
him
and your
for that.
brother.
I
Come
don't
on.
blame him for that.
Yeah.
Actually, I think George W. would have been way better off if he had spent more time talking to his dad about this stuff.
I need to pivot
disagree.
quickly to Dr. Ben Carson's comments. I know you were shaking your head violently in agreement.
The thing about the Supreme Court that's so fascinating is Rick Perry also talked a lot about the Supreme Court this weekend too, and talked about this next president likely will have the say of at least three of our Supreme Court justices. It suddenly makes policy issues a lot more important in this
right.
election.
Wow,
And-
this
and
truly
Ben
is the most
Carson.
important election of all time.
It really could be. I mean,
such-
these are your grandchildren who
yes.
these people will
The
be
things that
impacting.
he says are absolutely terrifying. He says that this is like Nazi Germany because we don't speak up. He's absolutely right, because I've yet to hear anybody criticize this president. And he sits there on TV criticizing the president and says, I'm not allowed to do it. This guy's giving anybody with a brain a bad name.
I think the rule should be just don't evoke Hitler in any capacity, no
Yeah,
matter
it's
who
not
you
a
are,
bad
where
way to
you
go.
are. It's
Yeah.
not the way to go. Anyway, Senator Bernie Sanders and Carly Fiorina, very busy pointing out their differences with Hillary Clinton. We'll tell you what they are in a moment.
Hillary Clinton says she is going to have a super PAC, says she has to do it. She doesn't like it, but she has to do it to compete. What about that?
I understand where she's coming from. I will not have a super PAC. I don't think we're going to outspend Hillary Clinton or Jeb Bush or anybody else. But I think we are going to raise the kinds of money that we need to run a strong and winning campaign.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. That was, of course, Curb Your Enthusiasm star Larry David. Okay, that was really Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders on Face the Nation. I mean, you got to think that Larry David would play him in a movie, right?
Right.
A heartbeat. Anyway, Bernie Sanders, he was on Face the Nation, trying to separate himself from his only competition at the moment in the 2016 Democratic nomination, or for it, that is Hillary Clinton. The self-proclaimed independent socialist may be Mrs. Clinton's only official competition in the Democratic Party, but the GOP has plenty of contenders ready to take her on, like 70. One of them is Carly Fiorina, former Hewlett-Packard CEO, and she's setting herself apart from the often reclusive former Secretary of State by answering pretty much every question that comes her way. That's in stark contrast of Mrs. Clinton, who has shunned the press since announcing her run for president last month. Frank Sadler, Mrs. Fiorina's campaign manager, reported that she has answered 322 on-the-record questions in 8 days as a candidate while hitting up every TV show imaginable, from Meet the Press to Kathy Lee and Hoda, who were actually sober for this particular show, show on the Today Show to Late Night with Seth Meyers. And she plans to continue to talk openly with media as campaign season continues. According to Sadler, Mrs. Clinton has answered a grand total of 8 questions since announcing her candidacy 28 days ago. It's clear that Hillary seems to be the one to beat right now, yes. But will these superficial attempts at setting themselves apart from the Clintons do much to help their own campaigns, or they should be focusing more on their policy ideas? Ms. Hanson.
I think they are focusing on their policy ideas. The thing that has impressed me with Carly, and you know I'm a Carly fan in some ways, she's actually come forth with some policy ideas, you know, especially when it comes to foreign policy where no one else has. She's talked about rebuilding the Sixth Fleet. She's talked about doing military exercises in the Baltics. She has real ideas. You can agree with them or not agree with them, but at least she's coming forward with things. The same way I do have to say for Bernie Sanders, he has come forward with real ideas. He too is talking about the Supreme Court and how his litmus test would be Citizens United. If people would overturn that, they would be his appointees. He's talked about climate change. He's talked about no Keystone Pipeline. Again, real ideas. You then can differentiate them with Hillary in 2 ways. They're answering questions. She's not. And they're giving real policy ideas. And I have always said that the ideas that she's come forward with have been the easy stuff, the easy pickings.
So what is your thought on the strategy? I know we've talked about it before, but are you just a little bit shocked that we're now 4 weeks in and she hasn't done an interview in any major capacity?
Well, let me, if I may, start with Bernie Sanders, and then I will answer that.
Larry David or
Bernie,
Bernie Sanders?
Bernie, I love you, baby. But let's face it, the reason you're not taking any PAC money, there's no rich people who are going to give you any PAC money. That's the reality of it. So it's a kind of an easy moral decision to make when you're not getting any PAC money. That aside, I got to say this about the Hillary-Carly thing. It's a really simple answer to the question. Carly has to answer the questions because nobody knows who she is. Hillary doesn't have to answer. Now, I wish that Hillary would answer more. I'm not saying otherwise. But she doesn't have to answer any more questions. I got to tell you, even my conservative pals out there who are not the biggest fans of Hillary, everybody pretty much agrees that Hillary had a much better week last week than she had in the preceding couple of weeks. Because she started coming out with some policy statements. Like them or hate them, she started telling you where she stands. Hillary should have some press time. I do agree with that. But Carly, you just aren't going to catch up to Hillary.
Do you think there'll be a rust factor when Hillary finally does sit down with somebody halfway decent as an interviewer? And the questions are thrown at her and then suddenly she's not on the listening tour and doing the I mean, I wonder if that first interview is going to go as poorly as it did with Diane Sawyer in the book tour and when she said she was dead broke.
I don't know, but she needs to, and obviously she should be advised
Well,
heavily.
does she need to? Because
no, actually, I
she has a
correct that.
60-point
She
lead.
doesn't need to, but she should.
I think the rust
and
is
the thing,
gone.
and the thing is the difference with her and Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton faced so much in terms of allegations thrown at him by his opponents, by the press, during his presidency, during his re-election, and so forth. One of the reasons he was able to overcome that, people believed that he cared about them. People believed that he understood their problems. I don't think people believe that about Hillary, that she is one of them. And until she can convey that, that's a big thing for her to overcome.
I think that that's true. And to add to that, talk about the rust factor, look at his interview on the Today Show and how
rusty he was.
He was,
yeah.
right. So he had a rust factor
Yes,
and he's
yes.
much better at it than she is.
Yeah, I
do
the
think
rust
she's
isn't the issue. The issue is she's not very good at
She's
answering
not
the
very,
question.
right. Which is
That's
why she
the
doesn't want to
problem,
do
right.
it.
Not so much rust.
She has
but
to.
Where she's
Sooner or
at her
later,
best
right.
is where he tends to be at his best, last week aside, when she's under attack. She is used to that.
Yes.
Right, and then she gets fiery like she
She
did. in
knows
New
how to
Hampshire.
deal with that.
Exactly. Well, coming up next, it's potluck time, and tonight they're matching, and it's for a reason because they will be sharing their favorite stories of the day. This is the Daily Wrap. Do not go anywhere. And welcome back to the show. It's potluck time, part of the show. We go around the table, share our favorite stories of the day. Normally I say if you wear black, you go first. So we had to flip a coin because the size zeros here, had to go ahead and not call each other beforehand. Thanks for that.
Both going to a cocktail party immediately following.
Right. Zero's the new two. So we went alphabetically instead. Hanson, you go first.
I am going to talk a little bit about Marilyn Mosby, a name that you think you're going to hear a lot more of. She is the state prosecutor who is prosecuting the police in Baltimore in the case with regards to Freddie Gray. And over the weekend, Prince put on a concert, a rally for peace in Baltimore, where he tried to raise money, obviously, for to sort of help with the whole peace idea. And one of the songs that he sang during this concert involved Freddie Gray. It was a song about bringing peace to Baltimore, et cetera, et cetera. Not only, there we go, there's Prince, the artist known as Prince.
I think he's back to being Prince.
And I think, yeah, he is back to being Prince. And listen, I'm a Prince fan. I have no problem with the fact that Marilyn Mosby went to this concert. She got the tickets apparently from her husband, the city councilman, and they sat there in the audience. But what I do take...
I'm sorry, she didn't sit on stage, though?
She did go up on the stage, and that's what I take issue with. You know, she is supposed to be impartial. On Friday, there was a motion filed against her and her office to recuse themselves for a number of reasons. The speech that she gave at the beginning of the case was inappropriate under the rules of professional conduct. The fact that her relationship with the lawyer is, the lawyer for Freddie Gray's family, is very, very close. He served in her transition team. He donated $4,000 to her campaign. He served as her lawyer. All of these things lend themselves to an idea of bias. And then this song, do you guys have the actual song that they played while she stood? Sure.
Nobody got it nobody's way. So I guess you could say it was a good day. At least a little better than the day in Baltimore.
First of all, not Prince's best work in my mind. But the lyrics are all about Freddie Gray. And to have her sitting on stage, again, I have no problem with her going to the concert, but when invited to go on stage, she should have deferred and said, you know what, I'd prefer not to come up. I'm in the middle of prosecuting this. There was a motion filed against me on Friday. There's 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't be involved in this case, and now I'm adding another. It's just like she did 2 interviews with CNN. She is not supposed, that is not her role. When it's over, if she wants to go on all kinds of concert tours, good for her. But at this stage of the game, I have a huge issue with it. I think we're going to hear so much more about this woman. I'm writing a piece about this whole thing, and I think that it's just enormously inappropriate for our sense of justice.
Hey, I didn't know you were a writer. Will this be on Mediaite or Forbes or?
No, HNGN is where I write.
Oh, okay, that's where they do the home improvement.
No.
It's
a website that I write.
Yes. All right, I have to defend Prince here.
Okay.
Because A, he had to come up with that song in like 2 weeks, and B, what rhymes with Baltimore? It's not your fault, Baltimore. Right? Where do you go with that, Rick?
That's true. That's a tough one.
But your thoughts from a legal perspective.
I got to tell you, my normal reaction, I'm going to be honest, my normal reaction would be, come on, lighten up. But Heather has been filling my head with some of the data. And I have to say, she's making a very persuasive case. I'm going to read the motion myself tonight or tomorrow. She's making some good points. And so I'm not going to simply respond by saying lighten up. There may be a lot to this.
This has been so political since this began, right, with Marilyn Mosby. I mean, yes, I understand, but it's been emotional, and now to do this.
Right, to do this, and again, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you were saying that she was in the audience, when you hear that she was on the stage, and then during the singing of the song, it seems to be inappropriate given the position that she's in right now.
Okay, second course, you're up.
Second potluck is the Fairfax County Public Schools have actually they Thursday last week they voted to add gender identity to the non-discrimination policy in spite of parents being against this. Now, actually, they were forced because the United States Department of Education, the Office of Civil Rights, said if you don't vote in favor of this, you'll lose federal funding. And that's quite a lot of federal funding for Fairfax schools, to the tune of $42 million. Now, what critics are saying about this is that this means this is for school districts which are, young children and so forth. If a little boy identifies as a girl, he would be allowed to use the girls' bathroom or the girls' locker rooms. And parents are saying, I want to be able to I don't want this to be forced on me by the government. I want to be able to have a choice as to when I talk to my children about this. And I agree with them on this.
I just saw that sign, though, that looked like there was a special room for gender neutral.
But see, in this case, they're not saying that
Isn't that maybe the solution?
That I can understand. That I can see as a solution. There's been
I
no
see your point.
regulations.
No.
They want the policy to be in effect with no regulations.
Well, it seems like a lot of the parents were objecting to teachers being transgender.
Teachers, and there being no choice, and they're saying, and a lot of critics are saying it's Fairfax now, but this could spread around the country. This is just one school
Very
district.
hard issue.
It's a hard issue.
But I like that solution.
That I could see as a solution.
Hey guys, put up the gender neutral sign one more time if you
Yeah,
can,
that-
right before we go to
that
break.
skirt.
I mean, the skirt, yeah, the half skirt. That is, that's not going to offend anybody. That did the job. Anyway, yay or nay is next. This is the Daily Wrap. Back with more in a moment. Yep, it never gets old. It's time for yay or nay here on the Wrap. First up, parents will do just about anything for their children, but this couple has gone to extremes. David and Nancy Kushner. They're a wealthy New Jersey couple and a proud parents of a high school bench warmer. Spent the last 2 years allegedly sending negative, harassing emails and letters to their son's basketball coach and several school administrators, pleading that the coach either quit or get fired. The coach says the experience has been scary and distressing. The couple has been charged with 4th-degree stalking, which is different than 5th or 3rd. Lawyers at the table. Mr. Unger, is this a little bit too far? Is that stalking?
They're
when you do it
doing
through
this
email?
because he won't play their kid?
Yeah. So they sent emails, 4 of them over 2 years, and the coach says it's distressing.
That's insane.
It is.
Yeah.
What is? Which part?
You don't threaten the coach because he won't play.
right.
Take your kid to a different school if you think he's that good and he's not getting the time.
Heather.
Yeah, under the law in New Jersey, it is stalking. 2 or more written communications that threaten someone and make them feel emotionally distressed. I think it's a stretch. It's political
He probably
correctness run
really wasn't
amok.
worried about getting hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Why not just have a conversation with the coach in
Right.
person? Why do you have to, I can't wait to get home to
Right.
send him an email?
Right. Maybe the kid really isn't a good player, but the point is that the parents seem to be obnoxious. This seems to be a form of harassment, and they're way over the line of getting involved with doing something like this.
And I am a nay because I was good enough to start in 2 sports, including state championship in football and a county championship in baseball. Go Valley.
Ill again.
Yes, I'm now the Al Bundy of cable television. Anyway, a luxury 5-star hotel in Mosul, Iraq, once voted the best place to stay while in that country, underwent a makeover recently. The Niawana International Hotel features everything you could expect. Beautifully manicured gardens, freshly polished marble floors, an expansive pool, restaurants, ballrooms, a gym. Basically, it's Rick's guest house. But the hotel also features something you wouldn't expect, like 2 black ISIS flags waving out front. That's right, the hotel is now owned and operated by ISIS, so dancing, music, smoking, gambling are now all forbidden, and women must dress head to toe in black. Patrons who fail to adhere to the rules risk, yep, you guessed it, amputation or beheading. It's getting old. That won't help their rating on TripAdvisor, I don't think. Yay or nay, Heather? Is this your next spring break destination?
No way. Thank you very much. As much as I like black, it's not my favorite.
Very good. Lisa.
As much as it seems like a family-friendly hotel, I'd have to say nay.
Disney Mosul not working for you?
We'll have to. I was going to say the best hotel in Mosul is like the best hotel in Akron, Ohio, right?
Yeah, good point.
But they might be onto a hip new management style. We'll have to see if they're making money.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know how their customers pay their bills if they don't walk around in the right garb.
You got a very good point. Well, yeah, right.
They don't get out
Pay
alive.
with their lives, basically.
It's the Hotel California.
Finally, in all the chaos surrounding last year's Deflategate controversy, one question has been overlooked, mostly by diehard Patriot fans. What happens if quarterback Tom Brady is found guilty? Well, we found that out before the show. We have our answer. The Super Bowl MVP suspended 4 games for his role in an illegal process apparently carried out by Patriot ball boys to slightly deflating footballs. The Patriots now need to replace him for the first quarter of the season. 4 games. Remember, they only play 16 in the NFL. Should Brady have been suspended 4 games, Rick Unger? Yay or nay?
It's ridiculous. This is an NFL commissioner who is so afraid of everything he does because he screwed up everything so far that he's just going to take it out on everybody. It's ridiculous. It's obscene. If you had to do something, maybe 1 game. And by the way, he wasn't proven guilty of anything.
Right.
More likely than not, ain't proven guilty.
Circumstantial. Here's the thing. They had a video, Roger Goodell, the commissioner, did, of Ray Rice
That's what I was
hitting
just
a
gonna
woman.
say.
Right.
He got 4.
He got 2 games.
Oh, he got
2
2
games.
games.
2 games. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I do think there's some irony in the fact that Brady's first game back is going to be against who? The Colts.
The Colts.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that won't get any ratings.
That's
or anything
right.
Like that.
And maybe that's why
can't believe
Goodell
I'm defending
shows
him.
that.
He was the
You're both
quarterback
good-looking
at the
men.
University of Michigan.
Quickly.
Yes, way too much is an overreach and trying to make up for
Right.
other things.
All right. And you know my feelings on this if you watch the show at all. It didn't give him a competitive advantage in any capacity. He was better when the balls were at normal strength. It's a stupid rule. Maybe you take away a draft pick, maybe one game like Rick said, but this isn't steroids. This is ridiculous. This is compensation or overcompensation for the Ray Rice thing. Anyway, all the time we have, I'm Joe Concha, Newsmax Prime, next with J.D. Hayworth.